Hotep, Black Power, giving on to the Creator, giving on to the ancestors, also giving on to my sister, Chief of Staff, Brother Harris Abdul of the Street Law Soldiers, my father, my in-laws, and all of the ancestors, and all of you out there, liberation and freedom fighters who are fighting for the salvation and the physical, mental, and spiritual and economic freedom of the black nation. We greet you all with Hotep and Black Power. Today I want to talk to y'all, and this is part of my series about the murder of black leaders, entertainers, and athletes. And today we're going to give honor to a wonderful, powerful, great ancestor who has not only influenced the nation, he has influenced me personally, and was a fiery warrior. I believe the most strongest warrior of our era, and that's Dr. Khallid Abdul Muhammad. And I'm going to just basically touch on some of the things that he did. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detailed statistics and whatnot, but just talk about the brother in general and pay honor to the brother. Born 1948 in Texas, he was born Harold Moore Jr. His childhood upbringing was pretty rough, staying with various relatives and whatnot. However, he was graced by the Creator and blessed by the Creator with the gift, with the oratory gift, because at 5 years old, he was outside, stopping cars, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to passerbys at 5 years old. And he was, it is said that he almost knew the Bible at 5 years old verbatim, nearly verbatim. So, this was a gift, an oratory gift he was blessed with early on. And very academically gifted, to the point where he was chosen by the Rockefeller Foundation to attend special schools, for the academically gifted, to the point where he ended up completing high school and ended up at Dillard College. He ended up at Dillard College, and where he was under the name Rashidin. He was under the name Brother Rashidin, and it was at Dillard College was where he heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from Master W.D. Fard Muhammad by way of Minister Louis Farrakhan. Once Khallid heard Minister Farrakhan speak, and during that time, I believe it was the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, that ignited a fire in Khallid to hear Minister Farrakhan speak. And at that time, Minister Farrakhan was a beast. Minister Farrakhan was unstoppable at the time. The Nation of Islam was a force to be reckoned with during that period. And Farrakhan was leading the charge. And Brother Khallid was mesmerized with the teachings, and he also studied the teachings of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, as well as Brother Malcolm X. and Dr. King. And let me just explain something about Dr. King, even though some of the things that we may agree or disagree with about Dr. King, he took 2 bullets to the dome and gave his life and sacrificed himself for the black nation. So he has to be given much credit for that, because there was a time where brothers and sisters were condemning King for some of the things he may have said or done. But however, you must take a look at yourself whenever you are, doing any type of investigating, or before you become judgmental. Put yourself in that person's shoes, and you come up with the conclusion of what decision you would have made if you were he or she. So Dr. King was highly gifted as well. He was a college graduate at 15. A lot of people don't know that, because the reason why Dr. King has become in recent years so somewhat of a brush off and kind of disrespected is because that was the only thing that was the only black person that white America wanted us to focus on. And they jammed Dr. King down the black community's throat. And that played a major role in our perception of Dr. King. But however, if you study Dr. King was just like Khallid and Brother Malcolm in so many ways. But nevertheless, Khallid ended up joining the Nation of Islam in the early 80s, and studied the teachings of Master Farad Muhammad, to the point where he worked his way up from security, FOI, to being Minister Farrakhan's national spokesman and national representative and spokesman. And Minister Farrakhan had announced, when he announced Dr. Khallid as his national representative, Mr. Farrakhan said he is supremely gifted. He has crushed everyone in debate. No one has defeated him in debate. He knows the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad like the back of his hand. And he's a dedicated follower of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. Very, 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 very powerful brother. And so when he became the national spokesperson for Minister Louis Farrakhan, he began going around the country debating crackers. I mean, crushing crackers. I mean, from all angles. And and the thing about it, he was crushing them 2 and 3 at a time. Rabbis, lawyers, high-profile attorneys, theologists, and they will come 2 and 3 at a time. And Dr. Khallid would just come by himself with about 7 or 8 books and will literally, within an hour's time, literally destroy these crackers. I mean, literally destroy them. And he was going around the country just crushing everywhere. He went on the Donahue show. When he went on the Donahue show, a lot of stuff, a lot of funky shit started to take place. Number one, he was shot shortly after the Donahue show. Now, Donahue is a starched, so-called white imposter Jew. So when Khallid went on the Donahue show denouncing the Jews, he discussed everything from Mandela's cowardly acts, how the soldiers were treated in World War II, in all wars, talked about Jesse Jackson, and he went on and on. He talked about various different subjects, and at the same time, a brother by the name of Steve Washington was in the audience, to later to be known as Hashim Nzinga, who is currently the chairman of the new Black Panther Party. And a couple of one brother that was a college supporter, and he was a activist in Texas. While he was at the Donahue show, white supremacists went into his house and drowned his wife in the tub. As sending a message to this brother to cease his activism in the streets of Houston. And eventually he was murdered. But nevertheless, Dr. Khallid viewership on the Donahue show went up into the millions. And Khallid made his debut of being a black warrior god on national television that day. I believe it was April, May of '93, somewhere around in '93 or early '94 when he made his appearance on the Donahue show. And a couple of months afterwards, he was shot at Riverside College in California. He was shot in the legs, and that was the works of Herb Rubin, Abraham Foxman of the ADL and the JDL. Which Khallid was denounced. Now, he went to King College and made a speech at King College about the white so-called imposter Jews. And he said nothing out of the context that he was taught by Minister Farrakhan. He said nothing outside of the context of what he was taught by Minister Farrakhan. However, Minister Farrakhan, with pressure from the white power structure, Minister Farrakhan bought into the white power structure and suspended Khalid Muhammad from his post for a period of 90 days minimum. Now, what upset me and what upset the black community was that if you teach someone that the sky is blue and they go around the country saying the sky is blue, and then the opposition gets pissed off and they tell you, what are you going to do about this guy saying the sky is blue, in which you taught him to say that the sky was blue, and you suspend him for saying that the sky is blue, something that you taught him. And that's what happened with the case with Minister Farrakhan when he suspended Dr. Khallid from his post. And Dr. Khallid was, it was no secret how deeply, emotionally, and mentally affected he was by being suspended. So, with the suspension, went from 90 days to permanent. And Khalid Muhammad literally, followed Minister Farrakhan around the country, begging to meet with him to be reinstated. And it didn't work. Minister Farrakhan was apparently wanted to keep his promise to the crackers that he would suspend Dr. Khallid indefinitely. So, it was at that time Dr. Khallid went on and joined the new Black Panther Party for self-defense, which was ran by Aaron Michaels at the time, which was rediscovered and ran by Aaron Michaels, Malik Zulu Shabazz, Hashim Nzinga, and several others. And they asked Khallid to be the chairman, to lead to lead the charge. And membership began to rise, to record proportions. And at the same time, Dr. Khallid was still going around lecturing around the country, still debating, crushing crackers everywhere, with no strings attached. He had no ties to the nation by this time. And it was at this time that the Senate condemned Dr. Khallid Muhammad. Something that has never been done before to a black person in the history of this country. That a brother was so powerful he had to be censored by Congress by a vote of 93-1. And so that was like a badge of honor for Khallid. Because when you're dealing with crackers, and you know that you're doing the right thing, because when they get upset and try to hurt you or condemn you, or eliminate you or assassinate you, you know that you're doing the right thing, that you're putting in work. And so that was the case with Dr. Khallid Muhammad. And he still went around lecturing, debating, waking the people up. And the new Black Panther Party membership was rising and rising, as by the day, actually, And a situation happened with brother James Byrd in Jasper, Texas, which this brother, three white supremacists, snatched James Byrd up, tied a chain around his neck, and tied him to a truck, and the truck drug him by his neck for 3 miles until his head popped off. His head literally popped off. And that really enraged not only Dr. Khallid, but the entire black nation. And that's when Dr. Khallid Muhammad went to Jasper, Texas, in the middle of the street with the new Black Panther Party with weapons. And they were going to stay in the streets until these crackers were apprehended. And people were cheering. As you can see, people were cheering. Even children were cheering Dr. Khallid on as he walked the streets of Jasper, Texas with an AK-47. And the sheriff's department and 2 local police districts and 2 county police refused to even go near the new Black Panther Party and Dr. Khallid for fear they would have been murdered. And so that was the first time in history that brothers walked down the street with weapons and made the police go in the house, and made the police get off the streets. And as a result of that, this cracker here was convicted along with 2 other devils. They were convicted and executed on death row. I think this cracker was executed in 2011. And the other 2, I believe, were executed shortly afterwards. But as a result of Dr. Khallid and the new Black Panther Party going to Jasper, Texas with weapons, demanding justice and demanding an eye for an eye, this cracker would have never been arrested. And Tupac Shakur began to work with Dr. Khallid Muhammad as well as Afeni Shakur. Afeni being one of the original Panthers, Panther 21 that was arrested in New York for supposedly attempting to blow up all government buildings in New York. And while arrested, she gave birth to Tupac Shakur, which Tupac went on to become a world-renowned actor, rapper, activist, scholar, and was well educated himself in terms of black consciousness. And he and Khallid had worked on had a couple of projects in the making, along with Monster Cody Scott, Tookie Williams, and several political prisoners that were original Panthers that are still behind enemy lines. Matula Shakur, Sekou Odinga, Sundiata Acoli, Herman Bale, and many others that were that are political prisoners. Geronimo Pratt may rest in power, but Tupac went around and visited all these brothers while they were incarcerated, and they were nation building, and unfortunately, Tupac met an early demise. Dr. Khallid went around with all the gangbangers, and his goal was to, along with Pac, they had agreed that the Crips and Bloods were going to become Panthers, and membership was estimated to be almost at the 2 million mark. 2 million black men that were former gangbangers that were going to become Panthers, part of the new Black Panther Party, where they were going to go around with brand new breakfast programs, educating the babies, teaching self-defense. Khallid actually had a training ground down in Eatonton, Georgia, where Dr. Malachi York's compound was. And Khallid had purchased some land down there that was supposed to be used for a military training ground, paramilitary training, for young former gangbangers and young brothers and sisters to teach them self-defense on all levels. Wesley Snipes also had land on that same property that he was trying to promote the same thing, paramilitary training with martial arts training, personally provided by Snipes. As you can see, that's a old picture of myself, to give you an idea how long the street law soldiers, how long, I've been in the movement. I've been conscious, that I've been putting in work and been in the streets, feeding the homeless, educating the youth, which I still do that to this day, and riding down on the system of racism, white supremacy. So that picture's about probably about 12, 13 years old, So just to give you an idea of how long the street law soldiers have been rolling. And that picture's about the same, it's about 11 or 12 years old as well, because we've been putting in work, and suiting and booting our youths, male and female, and turning and changing and transforming the lives of our brothers and sisters, our youth. And, we were not given any types of funding because of the fact that once they found out what we were doing, even churches refused to donate to the movement, to the street law soldiers. And because we were not born again Christians, and we didn't have on suits, tight ass suits and pointy toe shoes, that we were military style, military attired soldiers and warriors based on the fact that it's a war zone out there in the black community. And you have to you have to be prepared to deal with the war zone. Have you ever seen anyone in Afghanistan, any U.S. soldiers, with slacks and pointy toe shoes on? No. Our brothers and sisters, it's a war. And you have to be ready to go to combat on a daily and consistent basis. That was one of the reasons that we wore uniforms, and also pattern ourselves to a certain degree after the original Black Panther Party. We just have a different style of uniforms because no two uniforms are made the same, and that's what makes us so unique. And one of the things that bothered me most was when Dr. Khalid's son, Farrakhan Khalid Muhammad, turned against his father, and abandoned his father and disowned his father, in exchange for fame and fortune. Now, I'm not gonna say fame in exchange for fortune, which was a disgrace, and that really, and I know Dr. Khallid is deeply affected by that, and that's his son, and he changed his name to Farrah Gray, and I have no respect for that little faggot. He's a fucking faggot. He's a little punk. Yes, and I said it. And he disowned his father like he never knew him. And so what happened was Bill Clinton, President Obama, they agreed to allow him to acquire riches and fortune as long as he doesn't, long as he continues to denounce his father, which is a fucking shame, And, this is what this punk is doing now. He hangs with a lot of older, gay, black corporate gay motherfuckers, and, he said the greatest thing that happened to him was when he met Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton, who was one of his father's fucking arch enemies, that you would side with this goddamn cracker and go against your father. And this is when he said that's one of the greatest moments in his life, when he shook hands with this motherfucking dirty faggot, dirty motherfucking drug dealing scum motherfucking cracker, this cave dog, Bill Clinton. Now, I hope y'all can understand why, I use some of the language that I use sometimes to describe some of these motherfucking dogs, because, I get real intense, when these type of situations take place, and for Farrah Gray to turn against his father like he did, I think that was so fucking disrespectful from that little bitch, and Dr. Khallid took him everywhere, gave him the finer things in life, and protected him, with his life, and that was Dr. Khalid's heart. Dr. Khallid loved that boy to no end, and that's the way that he thanked Dr. Khallid by saying he never even heard of him. He don't know who he is, and doing the shit that he does, man. I seen him on the Monique show acting like a fucking faggot. And the thing about that is, if you notice, no one ever asked him Was he Dr. Khalid Muhammad's son? And I believe he will not do an interview. He will not talk to you if that question is going to be brought up. I think that's part of the protocol to uh, talk to him, or for him to do an interview or anyone's show, that question never be brought up. And that's some cruddy shit. And that's thanks from Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and others, Ted Kennedy, and others who have acknowledged, and have thanked Fire Gray for denouncing his father. Now, the murder of Dr. Khallid. Now, let me tell you, it's a lot of bullshit. It's a lot of motherfucking unanswered questions. It's a lot of shiesty individuals involved in the murder of Dr. Khallid. Because I've heard people say that they're not allowed to say he wasn't murdered. No, I'm saying he was murdered. Dr. Khallid was poisoned with ricin, an odorless, non-detectable poison from the castor oil plant. And he hasn't been the only one. It's been several. And we'll discuss those individuals at a later time. But he was poisoned. So, and I believe this is what happened when he went home. He ate at Popeyes. He went home with his wife, Ambush, who the ADL, Irv Rubin, said that's their daughter. The white Jews call her their daughter. And she was in on the assassination of Khallid. And so when they got home, they ate takeout. After the takeout, Khallid attempted to be intimate with his wife, and he began throwing up, having headaches, urinated, defecated on himself, ended up falling out in the bathroom in his own vomit and urine and feces. And what she does is set a pillow up under his head, under the toilet, and let him lay there for 3 hours before calling paramedics. Paramedics get there, take him to a local hospital in Atlanta where they didn't have a neurosurgeon. So they had to go, once again, that was another 5 hours. They had to go out to Marietta, Georgia, to another hospital where they had a neurosurgeon. And then that took another 3 hours. By that time, Khallid was through. And then the handling of his body.